Nice to see you. The topic of my presentation will be Aristotle biologists, what Aristotle biologists can tell us about the body. So rather, my study is about some part of history of science, of ancient science, to see how his concept of soul is already strongly rooted in his ideas about human body. I chose his biological work, De Partibus Animalium, because this work is a very significant work of Aristotle's biologist. Firstly, because in that work, in the first section, we find methodological introduction to entire development of the biological Aristotelian thought. And in the second section, he's elaborating his ideas, taking huge empirical data. And second reason, the importance of De Partibus Animalium can be found in the fact that this work was probably developed during his work about his ontological studies. So in that work we find simultaneous development of his philosophical, biological and psychobiological ideas. So two parts of my presentation. The first one regards the problem of the heart, and the second one the problem of the brain, because according to Aristotle, these two parts of human body were most important for working of human body. The problem of the heart, it was in the center of philosophical and scientific debate in the ancient Greece. The first, we can say, current of thought was accorded to Alcmaeon of Croton. And he was the first one who made many anatomical discoveries about human body, and Aristotle took his discoveries to elaborate in his works. And he formulated two important arguments. The first one, epistemological, about distinction between perception and understanding, and the second one about our way of making contact with reality, about our knowledge. And he told that our knowledge is not immediate, exhaustive, but rather synthetic hermeneutic. And also Aristotle will use these concepts. And the second current of thought was provided by Empedocles, and he emphasized the importance of the blood. The blood considered as the seat of sensibility and thought, and the blood considered as a mixture of four elements: water, earth, fire, and air. So also Aristotle will use these concepts of Empedocles. To understand the problem of the heart, we have to see the levels of the composition of living matter, because the problem of the heart for Aristotle was not the problem only of one of the part of body, but he understood the problem of heart and brain according to understanding the body as the unity, the whole structure of the body. So according to him, there were three main levels of composition of living matter. First level, composition resulting from the so-called elements, stoicheia, as I told, earth, air, fire, and water. And according to Aristotle, the elements were combined with qualities, with powers, with dynamis. So elements together with qualities, they lead to an emergence of a different mixes because of different dynamis. So the matter, according to Aristotle, at this basic level, was qualified according to prevailing dynamis in mixes. So we can see that his understanding of level of matter was really dynamic, not static. And the second level of composition was constituted of uniform parts. So elements and qualities, they were constituting uniform parts such as bone, flesh, and also to some extent the blood. And the third level was the level of non-uniform parts such as face, hands, eye, nostril, entire arm. And especially the third level was described as the level of part called as in the modern science called as organa, but also Aristotle used the term splanchnon viscera to call these internal organs, not only these external, but also to call these internal organs. So especially third level was level of parts responsible for different complex functions in the body. However, as we discussed also yesterday, there should be added the last definitive level of the composition, so the soul, because innovation of Aristotle consists in establishing the study of the soul also as the part of biological science. Of course, he's saying in De Anima that exactly the study of the soul is not a biological science, but in biological works he often refers to the soul, not only to fill the gap, theoretical gap, but this relation between body and soul is strongly seen in his biological works. So he explains that the soul is the principle of the life, of movement, of perception. The soul is determining the body to be the body alive. So the problem of heart is strongly combined with the problem of the passage from the material aggregate to the body structure. Because in the Partibus Animalium, we can see in the first part of this work that Aristotle is taking a different way to describe the genesis of the body, and according to him it remains incomplete if we refer only to organic composite. So he's looking to explain the unity, totality, organon of the body, and he made, we can say, 3 steps. The first one proof consists in terms of finalization, that some parts are in the sake of another parts of the body. And this term, in the sake of, it's the term used in his concept of teleology, finalization, but it not only means the genesis of the parts, the sequence, temporal sequence of the parts, that some are less important and others are more important, but also this term is referred to necessary precondition for the parts. So basic elements are necessary precondition, materialistic precondition for uniform parts for non-uniform parts, and non-uniform for work and functioning of the soul. So according to Aristotle, non-uniform parts represent the telos, a limit in the process of formation, and that limit is governed by the soul, because the soul is definitive explanation and foundation of the working of the body as the unity. So it's the first proof, consists in terms of finalization. The second proof consists in the theory of the bodily functions. So according to Aristotle, there are many bodily functions and actions, and these functions, actions are crucial, and they refer to the whole animals. So when he's explaining bodily function, he already refers to inter-animals, that they perform polymorphic functions. And all these explanations, according to Aristotle, are not sufficient. So at the end of the first part of the Partibus Animalium, he arrives at the problem how to combine, how to overcome the split, the gap between uniform and non-uniform parts, and between sensory and instrumental functions. And according to him, the heart is some kind of proto-structural part of the intermediate nature between uniform and non-uniform parts, in the sense that the heart, on the one hand, is divided into uniform parts, material uniform parts, but on the other hand, when it could be divisible, we can say that it's not uniform parts because it's a complex unity. So as a functional organ, it's not divisible. So especially par excellence in the heart, he sees that is the part of intermediate nature. Also, he sees the same quality in the veins in human body. So then he explains that the heart is the principle of heat, so it's mainly responsible for processes of digestion in the human body, and human digestion, according to Aristotle, was not conceived as chemical processes, but rather as process of dissipating heat in order to transform food into blood. And also the heart, according to him, is a principle of perception and movement, because all faculties, all powers of body are in the heart. And to explain this connection between heart and sensor parts of the body, he was looking for some kind of, we can say, nervous system, but nervous system was discovered a few decades after Aristotle. So he was trying to combine cooperation between heart and between sensory parts of the body in other ways, especially according to his idea of the principle of the association of similar. So he was trying to explain the presence of eye and the presence of sensory of hearing in the head because of the similar association of matter. Eye is liquid, the brain, according to him, has liquid nature, so that's why eye is near to the brain. And according to him, the heart is combined with some senses because of presence of blood in all the body. So some senses like eye or hearing are present in the skull near to the brain, and the connection between heart and other senses is according to the presence of blood. This matter presence of blood makes this connection. So that's why he often uses term of channels, poroi, or the plebia, also to explain this connection between heart and all the senses in all the body. And the last step taken to explain the responsibility of the heart for different functions consists in the doctrine of pneuma, but it was the later elaboration of his concepts, more sophisticated, of process of perception in human body. But also, according to him, the heart was the place not only of the sensory data because of the presence of blood, but also the origin of all movement. Many scholars attributed wrongly to Aristotle the absurd idea about deriving all the nerves from the heart because of, mentioned by me, phlebia, poroi, but also because of the term sinew, neuron. This term he is using often, but in his ideas, neuron, it meant ligaments. So heart was combined with muscles in the body by neuron, but by the neuron he understood tendons and ligaments. So it wasn't, according to him, exact explanation of neuronal system because he didn't discover neuronal system in the body. And the second part, really important for functioning of the body, is the brain. According to Galen, Aristotle didn't understand anything of the brain. But in reality, we can say that function of the brain is strongly combined with the presence of the heart, because according to Aristotle, the brain was responsible for the process of cooling, because the main preoccupation of ancient physicians, philosophers, was to explain some, we can say, homeostasis of the body, so how body can dissipate the heat. So the brain was the principle of compensation, of balance between two opposites, between hot part of the heart and between the brain, and how to provide all body, how to keep all body in the functioning. Of course, on the theoretical premises in De Partibus Animalium, we can say that also the heart could hit the brain through the blood, but it would mean a totally change of his ideas of his theoretical structure. So rather, Aristotle was looking for evidence that the brain is the part of cooling process. So how did he explain that the brain is really cool part of the body? Because he provided many dissections, and when he mechanically touched the animal brain, he could feel by his finger that rather it is cold, because the temperature of brain when the skull is opened is decreasing really rapidly. So he felt that the brain is really cold. And also when he mechanically stimulated the animal brain, he didn't observe any animal reaction. And it is provided also from modern discoveries that the brain does not feeling himself. Brain feels what happens in the body but does not feel himself. So in this sense, his mechanically proof was correct. And the second proof of cool nature of the brain was based on the already mentioned principle of the association of similar, because he was examining the eye, and he discovered this material structure of the eye as liquid and cool. So that's why this close relation between some senses like eye or hearing using the air close to the brain, and that's why he was explaining that the nature of the brain is cool. So what are the conclusions of this study of animal and of parts of animal according to Aristotle? Especially the main conclusion is that the heart, as I told, is according to him this intermediate part that provide the unity of the whole body between uniform and non-uniform parts. Of course, Aristotle didn't use the term of causation down top and top down, but when he is explaining working of the whole body in the books of the Partibus Animalium, it can be seen that more complex parts aim towards the simple and vice versa, and the heart is that center that is providing the unity of the body. Of course, the problem of the brain in Aristotle does not reveal many information for us from scientific point of view, but the study also of this problem can reveal us much information about the scientific investigation of that time and about his way of making scientific proofs and discoveries. And as I told, the cooling theory was not followed in the future after Aristotle theory, but that cooling theory strongly show us a holistic vision of natural processes acting in the organism according to him, and strong thermodynamic approach presented in his study of the living beings. According to the Partibus Animalium, we can characterize the biological method of Aristotle as strongly focused on direct observation of various phenomena. He made some errors during his study of parts of animals, but evidence were based on his direct observation of different phenomena in the nature. So he described bodies as unities having in itself the principle of motion. He was trying to describe different properties increasing in complexity, starting from the level of plants via animals to the man. And to the end, I will say that strength and depth of the Aristotelian study of nature was grounded in his philosophical ability to wander in front of the reality. Because as he wrote in the Partibus Animalium, in all natural things there is something marvelous. So the genius of Aristotle the biologist would not exist without Aristotle the philosopher. Thank you. very much.